I'm glad to be back here. You know, it's actually been a little while since I've done any reviewing work on a video game. It actually does feel nice to go and try something new, to give yourself a bit of a challenge by really going out of your element and expand your creativity, even when it comes to just doing reviews and analyzing the things that you're going to be looking at. And with the thing I am looking at, I'm going to be going into the complete opposite direction of the usual kid-friendly cartoons that I would usually watch. And this time around, I'm going to be checking a video game with the dead. The Walking Dead, to be precise. Which, I'm going to be very honest right now, I am a complete outsider when it comes to the franchise. Like, I've never played any of the other video games, I have never read any of the comics, and I've never watched a single episode of the show. I mean, to be fair, the thing is that I am a lot more of a Breaking Bad kind of guy when it comes to AMC. But I'll be right back. Okay, let's see here. Ooh, this sounds like a good one. Alright, do I need to watch The Walking Dead before playing the game? Yep, sounds like what I'm looking for. Alright, let's see here. I would suggest reading some comics or watching the TV show first to understand the universe a little better, but other than that, no. The Walking Dead games are set in the comic universe, but with different characters. By playing the games, you are not spoiling the TV show or comics, and by watching/reading them, you are not ruining the games. They are completely different stories. Oh! So, technically I don't have to. Hooray! Okay, so back onto The Walking Dead. In case you don't know, it's usually about a group of people surviving a zombie apocalypse caused by this virus. However, unlike other zombie programs where they focus more on the designs of the undead and the gory ways that they kill their victims, what sets The Walking Dead apart from those is how it mainly focuses on the survivors, their relationship with one another, and the tough choices they have to make in order to survive and not get bitten by zombies. Which is why some could view the franchise less as a legitimate horror show and more as a drama that's meant for audiences to connect with the characters.
I am sorry. I truly am. But I did say it. No exceptions!
Now that you got the idea of this world, let's continue to our main subject, the 2012 video game by Telltale, which undoubtedly is the most successful game of the franchise. Not only was it able to sell millions of units, but it was also highly acclaimed by critics with glowing reviews, so much so that many named it Game of the Year. Some have even gone as far and state that this game actually completely reinvented the adventure gaming genre, and actually went as far and make it popular all over again, which sadly was a dying art before it came in. And on top of that, it also helped Telltale Games to gather a large cult following and be able to go and develop some amazing games by taking some beloved franchises like Batman and Stranger Things and turn them into engaging narrative adventure games. That is until the company tragically shut down near the end of 2018. And that was just before they got themselves into massive controversy related to toxic and poorly handled management, layoffs were becoming a lot more frequent, and the employees that were let go didn't even manage to get their payment or benefits like healthcare. I think it is safe to say that nobody really likes the company anymore. I mean, there are still some that like the games, but nobody likes Telltale. Oh, and one more thing. This game is actually available across many different platforms, and when I say many, I mean that it is impossible to find someone that doesn't have something that they would be able to go and play this on. PCs, consoles, mobile devices, you name it, it's in there. But for the sake of this review, I'm gonna go and play this on my Nintendo Switch. So, with all that said and done, let's go ahead and get things started by getting into this zombie story. And yes, I actually do mean zombie story instead of a zombie game, because when you really get into it, you'll realize that this is something that you have to watch a lot more than something that you would legitimately play. The story of this version of The Walking Dead is about Lee Everett, a history professor who finds himself in the zombie apocalypse just before he got into prison for murder. On his way, he meets a little girl alone in her home named Clementine, and the two team up in order to survive this zombie-infested world, including getting into groups with a whole bunch of weird and shady people, and always on the hunt to find food, water, shelter, and medicine. Where the player comes into play is when they take on the role of Lee and make decisions that would ultimately affect the elements of the storyline. Maybe not necessarily impacting the story itself, but the things you say and your choices will determine your relationship with the character and who can trust you.
You don't have to tell everyone, but think about who you trust and take the opportunity while you have it.
You're probably right.
Of course I'm probably right.
As you could tell, the focus is a lot more on the story rather than having much gameplay. But then again, it's probably for the best because the game knows that it has a very strong story and wants to take full advantage of that. Obviously, as it is fueled by your choices as Lee, it's a very character-driven story that's not really about taking down zombies one by one, but taking the time to really know these people. You're stuck with them anyway, so why not gain their trust by learning their side of the story and understand their behaviors? There are gonna be some that you'll care more about, and others you want to blow their brains out like they're zombies, or walkers as they're called here. But still, as a zombie apocalypse story, it doesn't run short on having some intense action when the characters have to deal with an entire horde of walkers, some insane people, or even each other. And some elements of horror when a walker can just jump out of nowhere. However, the true highlight of this game, and what offers some of the most memorable moments, is the relationship between Lee and Clementine. Even if they only met due to the apocalypse, there's a real father-daughter bond between them. Lee has nothing left in this world, so Clem became what matters to him most, not only comforting her during some of the more brutal moments, but also preparing her to survive from the walkers, resulting in some of the most heartfelt and emotional scenes in any game.
Okay, but we'll be in Savannah, and my parents were in Savannah.
I know. Look,
No, I don't care about safety. I care about finding them.
okay, we'll look for them.
Really?
Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
I will confess, maybe it's because I haven't played much video games that have as much strong emotional bonds like this, but I did get pretty attached to Lee and Clem. And I even made sure that I make all the right choices in order to really take good care of her. Like, I try to make sure that's my priority number one, just like Lee would. But I will say that by the end of the game, it nearly broke me. Now, I won't spoil anything, I won't say much, but considering the events that happened there, and considering that I've spent so many hours, like, with these characters, I nearly bursted into tears. I was like this close by the end of the game. Anyways, going back to the game itself, going back into my analysis, I do have a bit of criticisms that I would like to discuss regarding the narrative. Now, it's not necessarily about the plot itself, I don't really have much problems with that. It's mostly how it tries to go and progress the plot. I'm not against the idea of this game making tough choices or how it's structured at all. I think it's really cool how your decisions follow you even when progressing on to the next episode. But more often than not, it's not really a patient game. When you have to make a choice, it gives you a timer of only a few seconds to make your decision, which sometimes can result in picking something that you didn't intend to happen, or if the timer runs out, the game will take it as if you stayed silent in the scenario. Considering how this is a game that really emphasizes that your actions have consequences, it does make it a bit stressful when the game itself keeps telling you to hurry it up. It even happened to me a few times when the timer went too quickly while I was still trying to decide on a big choice.
Are you stupid? He's gonna turn! You're putting all of us at risk, you son of a bitch! You're worthless, Lee.
But if that wasn't enough, if the game still feel like it wants to really mess with you psychologically, it will sometimes bring this up. This stupid thing is like your subconscious coming to life. Not telling you how exactly you did, but just enough to make you question yourself and worry if you did the right thing. Being stuck in a place where you're surrounded by walkers is one thing, but having that vaguely judging you is the real scariest part of the game.
She's gonna remember that you said that.
That's why you killed that woman in the woods.
You know that he's going to bring that up later. Okay, now the group right there, they will remember that moment.
The meat gets tainted. You can't eat it. You're already tainted.
Okay, what you just did there, that is really going to make a big impact later in the game. You just did that. Alright, just stop it! I'm already in enough pressure as it is with the game! Okay. I'm sorry. You know you could just go and turn that off, you know? Wait, what? Yeah, take a look. If you go into your settings, you can actually go and toggle on and off either the subtitles or visual clues or whatever in order to go and customize your gaming experience to make it more like how you would like it. Oh, wow. Hey, let me try something. Hold on, Hey, would you look at that? I know, right? It's really convenient. Definitely true. Now, if only if that can help the controls. Oh yeah, I really did wish that Telltale remembered that.
I can understand if some might disagree with the feeling of pressure, but it's hard to look past the actual game element of this game. As I've stated before, the focus is a lot more on the story than the gameplay, and while there are only a few moments when it would demand the player to do more than just make a choice, it's when you play that it feels rough. Technically, it's as simple as it gets. Like, this would almost fit in the point-and-click category, yet controlling Lee can sometimes be a challenge in itself, and the cursor feels like it's always slipping on ice. This makes it even more of a hassle when you have to go and shoot the walkers. Very rarely does it happen when I could clear out a zombie fight scene in just one try. I had to have a few "you are dead" scenes to continue because aligning a good shot is harder than shooting zombies in real life.
Lee, they're closing in!
But then there is also another element to talk about here, the graphics, and admittedly, it's not the most impressive looking game. Okay, maybe it's not really fair to say that, and I'm not saying that it looks bad at all. I do get what it's trying to do by literally bringing the comic universe to life for the characters to look more stylized. That, and we are talking about a game released back in 2012 by an independent developer, so time and budget can play a big factor onto its look. I'm sure at the time it looks great, but since then, technology has greatly evolved and even the art style that it tried to pull off had been significantly improved in other games and movies like Dragon Ball FighterZ and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Again, the graphics aren't bad, they're just a little, outdated.
I saw you walking through here and thought about scaring the pants off you.
What?
But I couldn't force myself to do it.
You're still kind of freaking me out.
I won't deny that this is a game that does have its share of unintentional issues, and there are some times when it can get frustrating for all the wrong reasons. So you do have a mix of good and bad here. But then again, I did state before that this is meant to be a lot more of a story than it is to actually be a game. So any of my game criticisms can be viewed as minor. So with that said, for what it's trying to be, it is still really good.
The Telltale game of The Walking Dead is a simple yet very effective game that captures the true spirit of the franchise while still standing well as its own thing. Sure, there can be a few issues on the actual game aspect, like slippery controls, but it keeps its entire focus on its central core, which is the story of a guy who's simultaneously trying to survive a zombie apocalypse and taking care of a little girl that he rescued. From there, the game becomes engaging, narratively intense, and with the help of a cast of some very well-developed characters, it becomes easy to get emotionally invested with the survivors. While you don't necessarily have to be a Walking Dead fan to fully enjoy this, you do have to have a taste for these zombie stories. Like, don't mind seeing the grotesque undead and see gore coming out of bodies regularly. So my recommendation is that this game is a must-play for people who enjoy or don't mind any form of media that involves zombies. As for the game itself, I'll give you a heads up that this is episodic, where it's separated in 5 episodes, and each can take around 2 to 3 hours to finish depending on how much you want to accomplish. There is also a bonus episode called 400 Days, but that one has little to do with the actual game's narrative. And of course, as it is considered Season 1, there are more seasons available up to Season 4 that follows Clementine, where we see her become older and still trying to survive this zombie-dominated world. These seasons were still done by Telltale, but after the company shut down, they had to pass the baton on to Skybound Games in order to finish off the final episodes of the last season. According to reviews, the later seasons don't hold up as well as the first, but they are still pretty good for the sake of continuing the plotline. Not great, but just good. As for the first, coming from someone who's more into movies, I always appreciate a great story, and that is why I give this game an 8 out of 10. You don't get a whole lot out of it as a game, but you do get more than enough with the characters involved.
You know, this really does make you think about something that's often been overlooked in video games in general. Now, when one would think about video games, the first thing that they would normally think of would be about the fun that they've had with them, whether it be jumping on platforms, the strategies they've crafted in RPGs, or just going around and shoot down enemies, just fun little stuff like that, really the gameplay of it. But then you got games like The Walking Dead, and it would come in and tell you about something that we don't normally think of regarding to video games, and that it is something that they can beautifully take advantage of. Now, we know that it's always been there, but we often forget that this is something that video games can also be. A storytelling medium. Are you crazy? Those animated films can't review themselves, you know. You don't get to pick my choices. See you later, dudes.
So, back to it.